war in Eastern Europe continues to fracture on multiple fronts as Ukraine insists its forces are still resisting Russian advances in the strategic city of Pokrovsk. Although Moscow claimed last week to have secured full control over the city, Ukrainian officials maintain that their troops are holding defensive lines to prevent a Russian breakthrough that could compromise the entire Donetsk region. This physical battle is accompanied by a deepening internal cultural conflict that threatens national unity from within, following new legislations in Kyiv that stripped the Russian language of its official protections. Millions of Russian-speaking Ukrainians feel increasingly alienated. Reports indicate that soldiers, teachers, and ordinary citizens are facing backlash and accusations of disloyalty for speaking their native tongue, a development that critics warn is feeding directly into Russian propaganda narratives. This growing sense of betrayal in cities like Odessa and within the ranks of the military has raised fears that social cohesion is fraying just as the country faced its most difficult winter of the war. Efforts to broker a ceasefire remain stalled as President Donald Trump increased pressure on the Ukrainian leadership to accept a negotiated end to the fighting. Trump has expressed frustration that President Volodymyr Zelensky has not fully reviewed a revised 20-point peace proposal formulated by the White House, even suggesting that the Ukrainian leader is the primary obstacle to a deal. In a controversial interview, Trump argued that it is time for Ukraine to hold national elections despite the constraints of martial law, warning that delaying the vote undermines Kyiv's democratic credibility. Zelensky, speaking to European leaders in London, doubled down on his refusal to make any territorial concessions, stating that he has no legal or moral right to surrender Ukrainian land. The Ukrainian president prepares to present a counterproposal to the White House, but the gap between Washington's desire for quick resolutions and Kyiv's demand for territorial integrity remains vast. Financial strategies to support Ukraine have hit a major roadblock after Japan officially rejected a European Union proposal to use frozen Russian sovereign assets to back a reparation loan. The plan, which relies on utilizing funds immobilized in the Euroclear system in Belgium, required broad international backing to proceed. Japanese representatives cited significant legal barriers and aligned their position with the United States, which has also quietly blocked the initiative. Belgian Prime Minister Bart de Wever had previously warned that confiscating foreign state assets without global consensus carries severe risk for the international financial system. This rejection leaves the European Union isolated in its attempt to secure this funding stream, creating a massive budget deficit for Ukraine just as Russian forces intensify their attacks. While diplomats argue over balance sheet, Russian troops have captured 3 additional settlements, exploiting the uncertainty to consolidate their gains on the battlefield. The diplomatic strains between Washington and Brussels intensify after President Trump publicly questioned the relevance of European allies in shaping a final peace settlement. In a series of sharp remarks, Trump described the European Union as decaying and criticized its leaders as weak people who talks excessively without taking decisive action. These comments drew an immediate and stern rebuke from European Council President Antonio Costa and Irish Prime Minister Michael Martin during a joint appearance in Dublin. Costa warned Washington against interfering in European political decisions and emphasized that the bloc has been Ukraine's largest financial supporter since the invasion began. Simultaneously, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, during a meeting with Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan, criticized the new United States national security strategy as unacceptable from a European perspective. Merz argued that Europe is capable of safeguarding its own democracy without American intervention, signaling a push for greater strategic independence from Washington. Fractures within the European Union itself are widening with the return of populist billionaire Andrej Babis as Prime Minister of the Czech Republic. Babis has joined forces with Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban and Slovakia Robert Fico to form a Central European bloc that is increasingly skeptical of continued military aid to Kyiv. This political shift was underscored by Hungarian Foreign Minister Peter Szijjarto's recent visit to Moscow, where he met with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. Szijjarto called for an end to European sanctions, arguing that their removal would create huge economic opportunities and that Budapest intends to be the most prepared partner for a post-war reality. The Hungarian diplomat praised President Trump's proposed peace plan as a ray of hope, aligning Budapest more closely with Washington and Moscow than with Brussels. This growing internal dissent threatened to paralyze EU consensus on future funding and sanctions package as the war drags on. Tensions between the United States and the European Union have spiked following a massive fine levied against the social media platform X. The European Commission imposed a penalty of roughly 120 million euros on the company owned by Elon Musk, citing violations of the Digital Service Act regarding deceptive verifications practice and a lack of advertising transparency. In a retaliatory move, X deactivated the European Commission's advertising account, accusing regulators of using the platform to deceptively amplify their announcement of the fine. President Donald Trump weighed in heavily on the dispute, calling the penalty nasty and suggesting that European regulators are unfairly targeting American innovation. However, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz pushed back against the American leader, insisting that all foreign corporations operating within the bloc must adhere to local laws. This clash over digital governance has highlighted a widening philosophical divide across the Atlantic regarding free speech and corporate regulation. If you have made it this far, congratulations, you have unlocked the truth. I want to ask you a quick question though. As we witness the deepening fracture between Washington and Brussels, highlighted by President Trump's dismissal of European leadership and the rise of a skeptical Central European bloc led by figures like Babis and Orban, do you think that a forced peace settlement involving territorial concessions is now inevitable for Ukraine given the financial deadlock and internal political divisions? Or will the European Union manage to consolidate its resources and independence to sustain Kyiv's defense of its sovereignty despite the growing pressure from the United States to hold elections and negotiate with Moscow? And why? Join the debate. We want to hear your insightful opinion on where this is all heading in our community. Share your thoughts in the comments below. I appreciate your support. Thank you for being a part of this journey. Like the video, share this video with friends and family, hit the notification bell, and most importantly, subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one.